China has suspended its purchase of seaborne oil from Russia. India is also poised to sharply cut its oil imports, which would greatly affect Russia's ability to fund its war. India had faced a punishing 50% tariff on exports to the US if it didn't cut its purchase of cheap Russian oil. Oil prices have now surged more than 5% to a 2-week high.
Now, Donald Trump has announced tough new sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies as frustrations grow over the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. The president posted the sanctions list on social media and called on Russia to agree to an immediate ceasefire. Here is Donald Trump.
They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push... hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. You know, it takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate each other. These two people hate each other. You know that better than anybody, and it makes it more difficult than it should be. This should be easier to do, but the level of hatred between Zelensky and Putin is very substantial.
Trump was also asked why he acted now, and he said, "I just felt like it was time. We waited a long time." Now, Trump has walked back his threat to use Tomahawk missiles, and he's tried to involve China by telling the media that Xi Jinping has the power to pressure Putin. Now, Esther, of course, negotiations over ending the war in Ukraine have stalled. Donald Trump put off a second planned summit with Putin in Budapest. So, Esther, I suppose these new sanctions are sending a signal that Donald Trump's patience with Putin is wearing thin, and he's really trying to ramp up the pressure here.
Yeah, and I think a sign that he's really kind of getting fed up with all of this, whatever Donald Trump looking fed up means, is that he's also put sanctions on India. So 25% sanctions on India, because India has been known to buy cheap Russian oil and gas and then sell it to international markets, to European markets, for example, at a hiked rate. I assume his next target will probably be China, which he didn't actually sanction. But I'm sure if he's very serious about this, we'll probably sanction in a few weeks. Now, he's also said that he hopes that this doesn't have to last very long, which is quite strange. When you sanction a country, you don't really want to tell them that you only want it to last a few weeks. You want the pressure to bite. But clearly, he is quite sick of what he thinks is Russia's stubbornness about concessions they want in the Donetsk region, and insistence on the sort of land trade and keeping basically most of Russian-speaking eastern Ukraine as sovereign Russian territory, at the very least a Russian satellite state. Trump has been kind of flip-flopping, because on the one hand, he's been, a few weeks ago, he promised Zelensky that he was going to entertain the idea of sending them Tomahawk missiles. On the other hand, he's now saying that Ukraine has to basically concede to Trump, to Putin, because they don't have a chance of winning this. And in all of this, the Europeans have just basically become the insurance policy for Ukraine. You've seen them ramping up a lot of their sort of military contributions and aid to Ukraine, which is basically their way of kind of securing their own borders. But clearly, Trump is showing that he is not afraid to put sanctions on not only Russia, but people that are benefiting from Russia's flooding the natural energy markets with cheap oil and gas.
Now, earlier today, President Donald Trump met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the White House shortly after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced new sanctions on Russia's biggest oil exporters. Ahmed, this is a significant move by the Trump administration, putting additional pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin and trying to get him to negotiate a peace deal. He has been recalcitrant throughout.
Do you remember the days when they said that Donald Trump was Putin's cat's paw? Do you remember the days they said he was in the pocket of Putin? I wonder if there was an apology issued for that, right?
Not quite. Not quite. No.
Look, he's handling this just right. Look, this is an almost intractable issue. This is not going to be solved, over the course of months, right? It's going to take a year or so, 2 years to solve, probably. But the fact that he is at a point where he's negotiating with both sides, this is far beyond where Biden ever was, right? He's the art of negotiation. Whether or not he actually is going to give them Tomahawk missiles, the fact that he's using that as leverage is the right move, because the Tomahawk missile the Russians are frightened of it because it brings all their major cities within the strike zone of Kiev. And it's an incredibly effective weapon system.
But the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has praised President Trump's decision not to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. And he said that he's got the right approach to secure a peace deal.
Here we have a president who from day one coming into office wants to end this war in Ukraine. By the way, he has been extremely successful recently with Gaza, and he has ended other conflicts, including India, Pakistan, and Armenia, Azerbaijan. So he is really a peacemaker. He wants to end this war. This is close to his heart. He wants to end the killing. And I think what he did on Friday and Sunday, saying, hey, let's stop where you are. So stop where you are. And then you can still debate a lot of other things later. But stop the fighting is exactly the right approach.
He's got the praise of the NATO chief there, but Donald Trump did promise a swift end to this war. Is this his biggest foreign policy frustration at the moment? Is this the one that he needs to tick off?
This is the big one, for sure. I mean, look, Gaza-Israel was also a massive one. I mean, he has had a string of successes. I mean, you can't expect the guy to solve all the world's problems in less than a year.
Well, he's had 8 peace deals in his second term.
I think that's pretty solid. I think that's pretty solid. But look, I love the Secretary General, right? And again, where's the remember when the days when they're saying he hates NATO, he wants to destroy NATO? Remember those days? Well, guess what? The Secretary General loves this president. He realizes the successes of this president on the foreign policy sphere, and he realizes the amount of strength he has been giving to NATO. So, yeah, look, I think that the Democrats, while they should apologize to him, I don't think it's forthcoming anytime soon.
I don't think so at all. And it was so obvious what Trump was doing when he was putting pressure on NATO countries, when he was making threats about, we're not going to keep protecting you. He wanted them to pay their share and not just rely on America to carry all the load. It was obvious that in the end that was going to strengthen NATO, and yet all the media commentary, almost all of it, was painting this as an attack against NATO and trying to weaken NATO and be, again, Putin's puppet. It makes you lose faith in the mainstream media when people seem to be deliberately blind to a strategy that should be pretty obvious.
Oh, you're so sweet. It makes us lose. Yeah, I'm sorry. We lost
passed that
faith
point.
a long time ago with the media.